How much money do you actually need to retire, to stop working altogether? It might be less than you think, but it depends. Hey, what's up everybody? Nico here, your favorite Italian. Today I'm talking about how much money you actually need to retire. Recently, Susie Orman told one of her callers to her podcast that $2 million was not enough to retire on. She said that a few $100,000, $1 to $2 million was not enough, especially in the case of a catastrophe, something that you don't see coming, like a sickness, for example. So they pressed her and they asked her how much would be enough, and she said, well, it's going to be in the millions, but it'll depend on several factors like where you live, your expenses, and whether you own your home outright or not. She said the amount you need is probably closer to 5 to 10 million. Now, what was really interesting is that the next thing she did is she gave some guidelines to one of her callers, and I found these to be very interesting. She said that by the time you're 30, you need to have at least 1 times your current income saved. So let's say you make $100,000 a year, you would need to have $100,000 saved by the time you're 30. She then said that you need 3 times your current income by 40, and then 6 times by the age of 50. Now look, Susie Orman's a wealthy woman. She's been writing financial books and has had podcasts and TV shows for decades now. I don't know if she's very in tune with the current state of people in their finances, but if you make $100,000 a year, I don't think you're going to have 100 saved by the time you're 30. Mostly because in your 20s, you have debt. Most people have debt. They have credit card debt, and they might have school loans they're paying off as well. So even if you're out of debt, where are you going to have the time to save all of that extra money? Saving that amount to the age of 30, now 40. Again, even if you paid off the debt, there's just not enough time to save these large amounts of money. She said that if you haven't met these goals, then you want to maximize contributions to your retirement accounts like a 401k, for example, and use the power of compounding interest in order to make your money grow. Okay, that's good advice. Investing early and living within your means can help. Yeah, duh. The thing is, most people don't invest early. Okay, unless you have parents who are financial advisors, who's thinking about investing money when they're 22, 25 years old? Most people aren't. Living within your means will definitely help get you to where you want to be later in life. I would suggest trying to avoid the wealth pitfall. The wealth pitfall is something that most people fall into. And all that means is that as your income goes up throughout your life, as you get older, you make more and more money, right? Unfortunately, as you tend to make more money, you also spend more. So now this gap, it's closer. It's more like this. If you can make more money and not spend more, have a bigger gap like that, all that money, all that room is money that you could invest in the market and turn into more money so you actually could retire later. Just because you're making more doesn't need to have a nicer apartment, a bigger house, a more expensive car. A lot of people feel like they need those things because they're making more. I'm making more, I need to buy more. And that's kind of what our society says. You don't need to do that. Now let's get specific. Let's use a dividend stock as an example. If we are going to retire, we need cash coming in from our portfolio to live our lives, to buy food, to pay for utilities, clothes, to, live. We also want to have enough money in our portfolio to continue to grow, to cover all the future expenses. We have no idea what's going to happen in the future, how much money we're going to need, or how long we're going to live. Except me, I'm going to live till I'm 135 because I just decided that a few years ago. So let's use Verizon stock as an example. It's a very common dividend play. Lots of people have it in their dividend portfolio because it returns 6% a year. 6% is sort of, it's like the mean for most dividend paying stocks. They typically pay between 5, 7-ish%. So 6% is a good sort of rule of thumb when it comes to dividends and trying to figure out how much money you would need to cover your expenses. So 6% dividend yield. That means for every 100 grand I invest, I make $500 a month. Okay, so let's just say I need $5,000 to cover all my monthly expenses. Now, more than half of that's going to be your mortgage. We're going to assume that you have a mortgage. Let's say you're 50, 60, even older, and you still have a mortgage. 5 grand is sort of a good middle of the road number. So using this example, that means that you would need to invest $1 million. So if you buy $1 million worth of Verizon stock, you'll make $5,000 a month, cover your expenses. Now, don't forget, I also said you want to have money set aside in growth funds or growth stocks, whatever you prefer, to cover all the unexpecteds that are going to happen in your life. But this gives you an example. And if you're thinking, well, there's no way in hell I'm going to get to $1 million, there are things that could help. Number one is the earlier you invest, the more you're going to have later. And I know most people don't invest when they're really young. I didn't. But the earlier you do it, the better off you are. The more money you could put in, the better off you are. The more you avoid that wealth pitfall of making more and spending more, the better off you're going to be. Live within your means. A famous Greek philosopher once said, the measure of wealth is not in a man who has a lot. It's in a man who needs very little. So if you have dreams of retiring one day, ask yourself this. How much do you really need?